Hello, it's Philippe Nicolas. You are listening to the French Storage Podcast. Happy listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new interview, a section of the French Storage Podcast where we meet and discuss with leaders of our industry. This format invites us to approach a company, understand its strategy on the market, thanks to a direct exchange with its top executive. And today, for this new edition, it's a great pleasure to meet Piyush Mehta, CEO of Data Dynamics. Hello, Piyush. Glad we have the chance to talk today.
Hello, Philippe. It's a pleasure to be here and good to connect with you.
Data Dynamics is a data management software company who develops a data orchestration platform named StorageX, known for many years, and the company also has dug into other adjacent domains with ControlX and Insight Analytics. Let's start with Piyush, who can explain in detail the product portfolio and the associated strategy. First, Piyush, StorageX has existed for a long time, and it is pretty well adopted on the market. Could you tell us the background of StorageX as we know it today?
Sure. The journey of StorageX is well known in the storage arena globally. It is IP that we acquired initially back in 2012. So we're celebrating our 10th year this year. And it is well known and well associated with the ability to drive large-scale data migrations. The legacy of the product goes back to Brocade and even earlier to a company called NewView. But we have truly transformed that from being a purely data mobility-based product to a platform that can drive aggregate data management across your unstructured data. So through the last 10 years, we've been able to help our enterprise customers evolve as they've evolved in moving into their digital journey and helping them understand, make sure it is compliant, make sure it has governance, and make sure it is secure when it comes to their data, and doing so at scale.
Thank you, Piyush. Back to Data Dynamics. What is the story of the company? When did you start the company and how are you financed?
So we started in 2012. The journey of the company is really taking an opportune need in the market at that time for a next generation file mobility capability. And we acquired the IP, as I mentioned, from Brocade, the initial IP. It is financed through organic growth. We have raised an angel round of funding when we initially started, and then really have bootstrapped and really made sure that we drive profitability out of every transaction that we do that can feed into constantly allowing us to innovate and meet the requirements of our clients. So we are one of those rare stories where we've not taken on institutional financing, but rather made sure that we can grow with the organic prowess of our capabilities and our customers.
Okay, understood. To help us realize the size of the company and its market footprint, what about sharing some figures with us, such as number of installation, capacity under management, but also your annual recurring revenue and even number of employees?
Sure. The company has grown significantly over the past 10 years. We have a major R&D hub out of Pune, India. We have our headquarters out of New Jersey. We have a team sprawled across the US and parts of Western Europe, with London being a strong base for Europe. So geographically, we can support global capabilities. Our team is now over 120 employees strong. Really proud of the team and the ecosystem that we've built. In terms of just financial numbers, what I'll share is that we are in an 8-figure ARR and continuing to grow at a very strong clip. We have a triple-digit net customer retention rate. So we're all the financial metrics that show strength in terms of a software company being able to meet growth requirements, we absolutely achieve and far exceed.
Perfect. So Piyush, we mentioned StorageX. You give us a bit the route where when it landed in the company. Could you give us a pitch of the product and please illustrate the key core function of it?
Sure. So the big unique difference that we provide in the market is a software platform. The software platform allows us to aggregate and provide single installation that allows you to do everything from managing the underlying storage, including optimizing it, including moving it, to be able to drive analytics and insight from the data itself, whether that be for compliance reasons, whether that be for internal query, whether that be for governance, and then to be able to ensure security around that data. When you think of these key pillars, analytics, mobility, compliance, governance, and security, these are things that typically enterprise customers have point solutions for, and multiple of them. By aggregating that into a single platform and providing a single standard that drives and scans your data against your entire unstructured environment, file, object, very soon Hadoop, gives you an all-encompassing capability that allows you to meet not only the optimization requirements, but the needs of the lines of business, the needs of the CDO, the needs of the CISO, all with different views in terms of the lens with which they view the output, but all leveraging one single capability. And that allows you to mitigate risk. It allows you to really garner the value from your data across both the content and infrastructure layers, and allows you to ensure that you are well informed to make decisions that are actionable from the product from which you got the insight.
Good. Piyush, beyond these key pillars you just mentioned, what about the enterprise use cases? How an enterprise can consider and leverage StorageX?
First, most of our customers use our analytics capabilities to understand risk. Do I have things like open shares? Who has access? Who is accessing? These then allow them to go to the next step, which is, hey, I want to know if I am compliant because I have a regulatory reason to be, and whether the data that sits in this environment meets, let's say, local standard like a GDPR or like a CCPA. I may also have business critical information stored in repositories like Calibra that I want to compare against a glossary and know if there's business critical information within my data. These are also questions that are answered using our platform. Another use case is, hey, once I identify data, I want to be able to move it. I want to be able to quarantine it. I want to be able to archive it. I want to be able to drive it to the cloud. All of these are feasible and capable through a policy engine that automates the process, leveraging the same platform that drove the insight and the analytics. So what ends up happening is you have a holistic solution that allows for not just identification, but actionability. Another use case that I'll mention, which is at the forefront of almost every executive across enterprises, large and small, ransomware. If I identify data and I can know who's accessing it, how do I now protect it? We give you the ability to quarantine where you remove all access to that data. We give you the ability to track and keep an immutable audit log of who is accessing that data so that that can be reported on and that can be used for governance purpose. We give you the ability to obfuscate. Hey, I want to remove certain words from the data, but still use the data because it has meaningful value. In a case of genomics, I want to be able to use patient information in terms of the output without giving up the patient name, their ID, or anything that would identify the individual. So if you can obfuscate that, but share the other 80, 90% of that data that has value in research, how do I drive that across within and across organizations? So you can see that leveraging a single platform gives you a multitude of use cases depending on which angle you come from, CIO, CISO, CDO, line of business, to leverage the output and the actionability that we can provide.
Good. So clearly what you explain about StorageX invite us to think of a platform much more than what a tool or a product can do. What is your definition of a platform?
To us, a platform is a holistic solution that's all-encompassing, that derives more than a point value. You know, tools are great. There is a need for them, but they are very limited in what their requirement is and what they can do, who accesses them and who uses them. So you have a lot of people that are very smart script writers. And you know what? You will write scripts to go generate an output, but it's a very specific action that you are tailoring it to. There are many good products out there that do point solutions, and those point solutions have value. The problem in enterprises is You may have and be scanning the same data with 20 point solutions because you're looking for 20 different answers. The ability of a platform to be holistic, to be able to be that single entity that can not only scan that data once, derive those 20 outputs, regardless of what that constituent's angle is, makes us different, innovative, and truly bleeding edge. There isn't another company that looks at data across the angles, both content, infrastructure, security, and mobility the way we do. And I think that truly differentiates us. The analogy I always like to use is SAP. Before the ERP systems that came out, you had multiple point solutions doing inventory management, accounting, purchasing, HR management. But when you had an enterprise capability to leverage an ERP system, you actually could aggregate those functions and be able to drive different actions as a result that correlate through that central mechanism. And that's what we offer. We think of us as that single central mechanism with API downstream and upstream, so you can call into us for data, as well as feed us with data that would allow us to become more intelligent and provide more value.
Good. And we understand how StorageX can fit in the environment, being a central focal point with an any-to-any connection and with all the data flow within the enterprise. Piyush, let's talk about your other products. You make a few introduction, or it's a perfect transition to speak about this. They are less known, but also more recent. Could you give us more details on ControlX and Insight Analytics?
Insight Analytics, ControlX, StorageX, all are components and modules within our aggregate platform. StorageX, obviously well known for its metadata analytics, its mobility capabilities, all around driving storage efficiency and optimization. This also includes the ability to drive and accelerate the journey to the cloud. With Insight Analytics, we're able to take that step further and give you content level analytics. What does that mean? Mitigate risk. Let's identify, is there personal information? Is there business sensitive information? If it is, what is the risk associated with it? Tie that back to who's accessing. And then once you understand that risk, our philosophy is don't just inform our customers about issues, help them have actionability to actually take action on them, to solve them. And with ControlX, it is the actionability that you can drive based on the analysis that you did with Insight Analytics. So with ControlX, you would remediate. And by remediate, I mean you could quarantine data that you found that has potential risk and you don't want to have it shared or accessible by anybody. Many times nowadays, people talk about air gap solutions. Quarantine in a certain way is an air gap because you're removing all permissions around that data. Our ability with ControlX to drive immutability of the record. And that's a key word because we use blockchain technology on the back end there, where we can record who's accessed, when they've edited, or if they've edited, or if they've only read a particular file. And what ends up happening there is that then gets logged into our immutable database. That record then, or that ledger, is then available as a report to be shared with external auditors who may say, hey, I want to know who all touched these files or these records. I may have a need from a legal standpoint to do that. I may have a need from a compliance or governance standpoint to do that. And third and final point, but also just as important, if not more so with ControlX, is you are seeing customers store petabytes and petabytes of data. Yes, there is a lifecycle management, which is, hey, let's archive, let's tier, let's reduce the cost of storage. But the most important facet when you store data is how do I extract value from it? How do I leverage it as a competitive differentiator? How do I drive and accelerate my digital journey? To do that, you want to be able to leverage as much of the data that you stored. And our ability to obfuscate certain words or certain key phrases that you may have identified using Insight Analytics gives you the ability to leverage that 80, 90+% of the content that otherwise you wouldn't give because you didn't have a way to segregate that or bifurcate that from the personal or the business critical information that you didn't want shared. Now you have a more collaborative effort within the organization across departments that could maybe take advantage of that data for data mining. You also have, and you're seeing more and more of this in healthcare, you're seeing it in financial services, you're seeing it across multiple different verticals, where you may want to share that data with external parties, whether they be suppliers for maintenance requirements, whether they be research, because you want to drive joint research without having to worry that you're sacrificing aspects that you want to keep private or personal. So I think the merit of leveraging Insight Analytics, ControlX in conjunction with StorageX is massive. And by the way, everything is API driven, so it builds into your own workflow as an enterprise rather than purely having to use UX. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in how you drive and leverage these capabilities.
Piyush, let's go beyond traditional data centers and dig a bit into the cloud. What is your cloud strategy?
So the cloud is an essential part of every enterprise, whether they're born applications in the cloud, whether they're moving legacy workloads to the cloud. We have actually partnered very closely with Microsoft's Azure to drive huge value for our customers. To begin with, understanding what workloads could be moved to the cloud and helping identify that becomes a key aspect to the journey that goes into the cloud. The ability to scale and drive data mobility at scale to the cloud, multiple petabytes moving in a matter of days in a secure and risk-free manner is another value that we offer. Third, once you get to the cloud, it is not an end state. It is just part of the ongoing evolution. We believe data will never be at rest. Data will continue to be agile and leveraged as required in a hybrid environment, in which case the ability to analyze that data for context, for content, protecting that data, ensuring it is compliant where it resides or where it is to be moved, are all aspects that become part of your aggregate cloud strategy. Most people think of cloud as an end state, but we believe cloud is part of the broader ecosystem of how you will leverage different aspects, whether it be your local data centers, whether it be a cloud or multiple clouds, whether it be part of a core and edge strategy. So you can see that the convergence of analytics, mobility, security, compliance, and governance all become key aspects of this. We can actually deploy our platform fully in a cloud provider. We can deploy it partially in a cloud provider, partially locally. So there's multiple ways that you can actually deploy our software to leverage the greatest value from it, depending on what your use case is and what you're trying to accomplish.
How do you see the market and the competition, some consolidation, of course, new players, needs, and also some initiatives?
It's a good question. And what's interesting is, Philippe, I could rattle off multiple names of competitors, but each competitor goes back to the conversation that we had earlier, a differentiation between tool, product, and platform. Most of them fall in the tool or product category. They don't fall in the platform category. And that's the true differentiator. So whether you look at a Veritas Data Insight, which does a great job with analytics, whether you look at Varonis, which tries to do a ton of ransomware or intrusion detection, whether you look at OneTrust, Big ID, who try and play in the content and compliance and governance space, or security with PriveSec and others. The challenge is each of those address a particular point or area of pain, but each of them then need to be used independently of something else. With the platform, you mitigate the need to do that and leverage a holistic approach. And now you could probably get rid of majority of those products that I mentioned and leverage a single platform. This same thing applies to data mobility. The same thing applies to metadata analytics. A lot of our customers use either a vendor-based storage product. A lot of our customers will write scripts. So there is a multitude of different point solutions, as I like to call them, that customers use. So it's going in and educating a customer that, hey, there is a holistic approach. There is a platform. And by the way, procurement loves it because now instead of having to buy 20 point solutions, I have one. Customers love it because it addresses the pain point of having to scan the same data 20 times, which could have both performance issues and create more risk within your environment.
Piyush, let's talk now about the commercial aspect. How do you sell this free product and how do you charge a service? And also beyond the channel, any OEM?
Sure. We are primarily going to market with a partner of ecosystems. The traditional infrastructure play is with a lot of the large vendors, whether it be a NetApp, whether it be a Dell, whether it be a Lenovo, who all have the ability to resell our product. We also go to market with systems integrators, a Kyndryl, and HCL, and Infosys, ATCS are all partners that we work closely with to drive value in their managed services business. And then obviously the cloud providers. As I mentioned, our number one and key focus continues to be Microsoft Azure and the partnership with them and driving value for their customers to accelerate the on-ramp to Azure. In terms of the go-to-market from a commercial aspect, we charge by module. What does that mean? Each module is independent within the platform. So you could say, hey, I want just a metadata analytics as a starting point for X capacity. And it's an annual license. So it's a 1-year term, which is recurring. It's a 1-year subscription. And every year you could either increase, decrease, or stay the same on your capacity. And you could add incremental modules. And what that does is allows you to treat the platform as a bunch of Legos that you're putting together to create different, based on your use cases, flexibility in how you utilize it. So it's a truly natural utility model, which says, hey, as I evolve and grow, the platform evolves and grows with me. And what we found is once a customer buys one module, within 6 to 9 months, they buy a second module. Within 12 to 15 months, they buy a third module. So it allows for that natural evolution of growth. And we go on the data management journey with them as they look to consolidate, optimize, and manage within a single platform.
So you just mentioned subscription utility model. Does it mean you adopt a pure SaaS model?
It doesn't. And when I say SaaS, to me, SaaS has a couple of connotations. One is multi-tenancy. So we don't do multi-tenancy. We actually provide an instance per customer. And for us, that's important because our customers are some of the largest out there, and they want the security and the knowledge that they can deploy this within their environment, whether it be in the cloud or locally. Secondly, it is not a utility model in the sense that you are paying after the fact. You are actually buying a subscription up front, and it is an annual subscription. The beauty and the flexibility you have is you can increase or decrease the quantity or the capacity that you're using on an annualized basis. So when your renewal comes up, if you say, hey, my estate went from 10 petabytes to 12 petabytes, all you'll do is increase the subscription to 12 petabytes and maybe add a module or two for additional capability. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, but it's not a traditional SaaS model as most people would think of it.
Piyush, to conclude, we must speak about the future, both in terms of company, but also in terms of product. What are the directions and what do you prepare?
We believe that we have just are at the initial stages of a long journey ahead of us. The concept of a platform is very innovative and it's getting tremendous reception. We are looking at other areas to be added. As I mentioned, we are very soon adding supportability for Hadoop and HDFS. We are looking at block storage and the ability to support block and relational databases as part of the overall management capability. What that would do is really give a true holistic data management capability across file, object, Hadoop, and block. And that's something that doesn't exist in aggregate. The other thing that we are looking at is how do we derive more value? We are building out some innovative capabilities that allow you to model and build out risk profiles that are very customizable to your business and very customizable to your lines of business. And when you think about that in conjunction with the power of the platform, the intelligence that's built within it, the reporting and the actionability you can take, it really will set us even further apart than we already are in terms of competitive differentiators. So we believe the road ahead of us is, and the opportunity ahead of us, I should say, is massive. And we are still in the early stages of our journey in providing that value. As data continues to grow, as data sprawl continues to grow, the need for having this type of aggregated platform to be able to support across a multitude of different areas within a business is an absolute must, not a nice to have. And we believe that we're pioneering a new way of thinking about data management across both infrastructure, content, compliance, governance, and security.
This is the end. Thank you very much, Piyush, for this open dialogue.
It was a pleasure to speak to you, Philippe. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
We'll continue to monitor data dynamics carefully during the next few months. And for us, I invite you to listen to our weekly rendezvous for new episodes around specific topics, leaders interview, or the talks, all available on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you, everyone, and pleasure to meet you again very soon for a new episode. Ciao!